Frank, good to be here with you. Maybe you'd like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about how in your organization, in your strategy, you see that convergence starting to take shape, that pivot, morph, whatever you want to call it, the serialization capabilities into supply chain. Not to say that it's been done, but how you see it evolving.
Yeah, sure, Roddy. So I'm Frank Binder. I'm the Global Head of Supply Chain Management at Santen. We are a company focusing on ophthalmology, so niche within pharma. And we are a Japanese company in the process of becoming global. So there's quite a lot of work for everyone, including supply chain management, to embrace global processes and global approaches and global systems.
Good. So if I can read into that, what I would anticipate is you've been putting the standards in place. That makes the convergence of serialization and supply chain, I won't say easy because nothing is ever easy, but it makes it a little more of a less painful.
Yeah, and you're right. It's not easy, and it will not be easy. But at least I think we have some directions to go. I think there's two elements when you talk about convergence of serialization with the supply chain. One is using the serial numbers themselves, especially downstream with our logistics partner. We know we will not be able to have, at least the way the systems are set up today, to have the full transparency, but at least we can establish within our area of responsibility, as long as the products are under our own care, we can track, and we should track them as far downstream as we can. That will help us to understand the flows in the market. That will help us also to get some investigations done if necessary. And on the other hand, and maybe that's longer term, the more interesting element is to use the network that has been created to cope with serialization, to use that network to enable other business processes.
Because we know, and a lot of supply chain leaders always say to me, the problem is I don't have visibility. And when you talk about visibility, if we get real about visibility, well, visibility of what? And if you have those serialization and track and trace processes, the basis of visibility, you've got quite a big substantial base for running the supply chain. Would that be a fair comment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would give us a better handle on the things that are really going on the ground, that we can really know, okay, we have some products and some place, and that is the way that is the path they have taken. And certainly in some situations, for example, when there's a question being asked, has something happened that might not have been legal or so on, we have to investigate, and as much information as we can have that's valuable. But it's also valuable for us to understand how our product flows. I think this is something that we as a supply chain people want to understand as much as possible, because then we can adapt our own planning and our own operations to that.
And even improve if you need to.
Yes, definitely.
So does that, if you think about serialization and track and trace, it's providing you for this basis of re-engineering business process and even introducing new digital technologies. Is that a lens that you look at? In other words, as you're going through mapping and modeling the serialization, track and trace, do you say, there is an opportunity where we could implement something digital and get a 10 times improvement in cycle times, or whatever the case may be?
Yeah, I think as we start to study the processes in detail and digitize the business processes and link them up via network, also with our partners, that shows us where the opportunities lie. And once we have the processes in a digital format, and then we get data out of, and we can use these data to further study what is really going on.
What about analytics? Because analytics has traditionally been the space where we call IT help. We need you to implement some analytics. Whereas I think that more and more analytics are falling into the domain of supply chain specialists. Is that something that you're seeing happening as well?
I think this is certainly a big trend. I mean, we have more and more talk about self-service analytics. We have more and more tools where an average gifted user can just take the tool and click through and get his own views on the data. Once the data is available and in a system, then today we have tools that can help us to explore much more. We don't need to wait for the IT department to program us a report that we will get every fortnight or something like that. There's a lot of changes in that area.
Let's talk about the relationship in your organization between supply chain, IT, and digital. How aligned are they, and how much do you see them starting to really collaborate against the same agenda? Because the problem with digital, it can be seen as a lot of projects. And the problem with IT is they're dealing with infrastructure, and you're dealing with the real world of managing the business. Now, how do you get them all to come together, and where would you say you are on that journey?
We have still quite some road ahead of us. We are now involved in some big projects to implement collaborative planning, even establishing a single global ERP system. So there is some fundamental work that we are still doing, but I would say overall we have engaged with the IT department very closely. I think we are probably supply chain is one of the functions within the company that is most interacting with IT on a daily basis, where we really try to figure out what could we do together. Our colleagues in IT are very keen, of course, to do this kind of activities, digitalization and so on, but they're looking for business guidance. What should we be doing? So we are developing together the strategy that will better a roadmap with some very concrete activities that we have over the next 2 to 3 years.
That's exciting. So what I hear you saying is IT is not rushing out and putting solutions down and calling you and saying, here's something for you. You're actually working up front, almost in the line of design thinking, to say, let's design together what we need and what you can deliver, and then make it work and deliver value for the business.
Yeah, definitely. I think we have a level of interaction and dialogue that is now really has been gotten much stronger, and where we really work together from the beginning to design things together.
Would you say that supply chain in your organization, because I've certainly seen this happen in other sectors, starts to be seen much more as a growth weapon than just, take costs out and make sure that you're efficient and lean? And that is a journey in itself. Do you see that happening? In other words, the business looks at you differently and says, help us do things we maybe couldn't have done in the past?
Yeah, I think we have some interesting developments where we are opening up new distribution channels, moving away from just supplying full line wholesalers to some, also depending on the products, of course, but establishing direct to hospital distribution channels and so on, where we are enabling activities that commercial would like to do, consignment stocks and so on. So I think we are now really being looked at as a business partner. So that's what I'm trying since quite some time to advocate. I gave my department the motto: we should move from being pallet pushers to business partners. And it's quite some work, because we come really from the pallet pusher environment, but we are making progress into being seen and respected as business partners. Of course, for that we have to deliver.
So if you went to the CIO or the CEO of the company and said, how do you feel about supply chain? Would they say, well, they kind of get on with their job and they get the things done that needs to? Or would they say, they've been really instrumental in helping us launch a new product, and if it wasn't for supply chain and the way we go about supply chain, we don't think we would have been able to do it?
Well, there's clear examples where we have global launches that we are preparing, where supply chain is really going beyond just doing just making sure that the product is ready, where we're really giving input into how the project could be structured, on the governance, on the way we approach it, and on collaboration with other functions. And we try to set the example in being really cross-functional. And when I talk to the COO, for example, I get a positive feedback as well, that what we are doing, it's being recognized that we are starting to deliver more value. We are not yet there where I want to be. We're not yet there where the COO wants us to be. That is very clear. It's a long journey, but I see that it's being taken very positively, what we're doing.
If you had a chance to start again, would you do anything differently?
I think I would put more emphasis on change management right on the up front. Supply chain people mostly come out of technical backgrounds, including myself. We tend to be technocratic, and since we have the feeling, okay, we know what are the solutions, we tend to go ahead. But I think if I started my current position anew, I would spend more time first convincing people that of the road.
When I talk to supply chain people, almost everybody says the same thing. I don't think you can ever put enough time into change management.
Yes.
So, whether you did a lot, you say, I wish I'd done a little bit more. Because at the end of the day, it is about people, process, and technology. Do you have somebody in HR that's specifically allocated to look at the emerging new requirements for skills and talent and organization designs in supply chain?
No, not yet, but this is clearly on the list. We have to ramp up on that area, and we know we'll need some new kind of talents, and we have to be attractive, of course, for the techie kids coming fresh from university. But I think the supply chain environment is really evolving in a direction that should make it very attractive for these youngsters as well.